The sandstorm had a sound, like memory scratching against bone. I watched it spiral across the Martian basin from the airlock window, blood-orange grit howling against the dome, like a warning no one wanted to hear. Inside, the oxygen tasted recycled, metallic. My pulse synced with the low drone of the base systems, the hum of life engineered on a dead planet. I didn't come here to find God. I came to run from one. Commander Ares? Dr. Elia's voice filtered through the comms with that careful edge, the way people speak to broken things. We finished drilling Sector E. There's something strange in the core sample. I closed my eyes, inhaled through my teeth. The airlock hissed open behind me. I turned. Elia stood silhouetted in the sterile white light of the lab corridor, holding a black canister like it weighed more than metal. She looked afraid. We walked in silence past the cryotanks and memory reclamation pods. The walls pulsed with thermal veins, red, blue, like some heartbeat had been coded into the station's bones. In the analysis room, the lights dimmed as we entered, glass holoscreens blooming awake like hungry eyes. Elia loaded the canister into the scanner. Static danced. Then symbols, not language, not code, bloomed across the interface like scars in firelight. "Do you see it?" she whispered. I did. A spiral, symmetrical, infinite, like the shape of time dying in slow motion. The machine didn't recognize the structure. The AI core stuttered. Electromagnetic sensors spiked into unreadable red. Beneath it, layers of matter, not metal, not rock, but something, aware. Pulsing slowly? Organic? I asked. She nodded. But ancient, and not human. The lights flickered, the air changed. I felt it, a presence, not inside the room, but inside my skin. A vibration in my blood, like a voice not yet formed. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sandstorm screamed, the base shook, and in the mirror, I saw her. Not fully, just the outline, a shimmer behind the reflection, skin like obsidian beneath a sheen of golden fractals, hair flowing upward like water escaping gravity. Her eyes, black voids wrapped in stars, met mine without moving. I backed away, heart pounding. She didn't blink. She just was, as if my body had become the doorway and she was stepping through. In the morning, Elia was gone. Her bunk untouched, her comms disabled, surveillance feed corrupted. I traced her last steps through the geological wing. Doors hissed open behind layers of Martian dust. The core sample chamber was dark, lights shattered, walls warped with scorch marks. But in the center, the black canister lay open like a grave, and in its place stood the woman from the mirror, but not fully formed. A projection, maybe. Her body flickered, pieces of her coalescing like memory. Skin blushed with iridescent veins. She didn't move, just stared. And then she spoke, not aloud, inside me. "You were made to remember." I dropped to my knees, my skull burned. A rush of images tore through my mind, not mine. Ancient cities carved in crimson stone, skies ripped open by light, creatures kneeling before her, not praying, surrendering. She was not a god. She was what gods feared. Back in the command deck, alarms flashed. One of the rovers had gone dark, the one Elia had taken toward the southern trench. I launched the feed. At first, static, then clarity. The Martian surface yawning open like a wound. Runes etched into rock not by erosion, but by design. At the edge stood Elia, rigid, arms outstretched, facing the abyss. And just beyond her, something moving inside the trench. Not crawling, not climbing, rising. I suited up. I knew the rules. Wait, assess, alert Earth Command. But something had overwritten protocol. Something in me that had been quiet for years. A memory, not mine, awakening like flame behind the eyes. Outside, the storm had cleared. Silence reigned over the endless red. As I walked toward the trench, the gravity felt wrong, lighter, like the air didn't want to hold me. When I reached the edge, I saw her again. But this time, she wasn't in me. She was beneath me, buried in the Martian crust, flesh wrapped in crystal and alloy, eyes closed in a sleep that had lasted longer than civilization. Wires or veins stretched across her chest, pulsing dimly. She looked human, but wasn't. She looked dead, but breathed. Her presence filled the trench like water around a drowning man. I reached out. My glove hovered inches above her chest. Then her eyes opened, blinding white. No iris, just light. And in that instant, I wasn't on Mars. I was somewhere else. A chamber of stone and stars, the air full of scentless flame, and she stood before me, fully formed. She touched my face. The heat was unbearable. She whispered, "They buried me beneath your future, but I remember you." I gasped, staggered back into my own body. Heartbeat roaring in my ears. The woman beneath the crust, still asleep. But the bond was formed. I knew her name, not in words, in da-da-da, meaning da-da-da. She was the memory the universe tried to forget. And she had chosen me. Then the trench trembled. A voice thundered through my comms, not Elias, not human. Initiation detected. Vessel integrity compromised. Above me, the Martian sky cracked. Not a metaphor, it cracked. A rift opened in the red horizon. Light poured out. Not sunlight, something older. And rising from beneath, her body began to stir. Not fully, just enough for the ground to quake, for my spine to ache with something alien. Something being born, again, through me. And I understood, this wasn't discovery. It was resurrection. And I was no longer just Alaris. I was the door she had chosen to step through. And she was waking up. Inside me. The tremor didn't stop. It pulsed through the crust like a heartbeat synced to mine. Dust rose in slow motion arcs as gravity bent, glitched, tried to recalculate. I staggered backward, boots slipping near the trench's edge. The Martian soil rippled beneath me, not like rock, but like skin. Below, her form shimmered. Not fully physical, not entirely spectral. A goddess suspended in both machine and myth. The light around her chest pulsed in rhythm, not mechanical, not organic, something between. My helmet comms burst alive with static. "Elia?" I snapped. "Is that you?" Nothing. Then, a flicker. No source. She is not gone. She is becoming. The voice wasn't mine. It wasn't hers either. It echoed like it had been waiting centuries to be heard, and found my skull the nearest amplifier. I clutched my head. Flashes burst behind my eyes, ancient battles written in alien constellations, dying suns weeping light, the sound of language cracking open under its own weight. Then I saw her, Elia, or what she had become, standing across the trench. Her skin was no longer pale. It was molten with pattern, glyphs blooming across her flesh like the script of a forgotten empire. Her eyes glowed the same blinding white as the figure below. "Elia!" I shouted. She tilted her head, curious. Her lips moved, but no sound escaped. And yet I heard her. The vessel must break for the god to rise. She stepped forward. I raised my hand, in warning, in longing. I didn't know. She didn't stop. She walked across the air, not floated, walked. Every step etched light into the trench, carving runes into existence. The god beneath stirred. The rift in the sky widened. Something screamed from inside it, a sound like hope and extinction all at once. My HUD cracked. Oxygen pressure dropped. Every warning system inside the suit began to fail, but I couldn't look away. Elia reached me. Her face, once familiar, now shimmered with alien beauty. Her hair floated like ink in water. Her voice finally arrived, soft, seductive, absolute. Do you remember what you were before Earth? What are you talking about? I gasped, backing away. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, in recognition. You were the last to resist her, she said, and the first to return. I blinked, and I was falling. No, sinking. The trench swallowed me whole. The red rock gave way to something softer, warmer, wet with memory. My suit melted around me, not with heat, but with knowing. I tried to scream, but the sound came out golden. I landed in darkness, but it wasn't empty. It pulsed. Walls curved like cathedral ribs. Symbols danced in liquid light. The air buzzed with unspoken things. At the center stood the chamber. Inside it, her. Fully formed now. No longer asleep. Her body, obsidian wrapped in gold circuitry, fractals moving across her skin like living poetry. Her curves were impossible, carved with the symmetry of stars. Breasts bare, glowing with subdermal lines. Hips wide like ancient temples. Every movement a sermon. Her presence a gravity well of desire and terror. She opened her eyes and spoke without lips. Aras, the name they gave you when they forgot me. I trembled. Who are you? Her form glided toward me, untouched by floor or time. She placed a hand on my chest. My heart slowed, then matched hers. You once called me Salith, the womb beyond war, the code behind creation. They buried me in silence, but you carried the echo. My mind cracked. Images poured in. Salith at the height of her glory, worshipped, feared, desired. Civilizations built and burned in her name. Humanity once stood beside her, not as slaves, but as co-authors of the dream. Until fear won, until memory was turned against her, until her name was scraped from history, her body entombed beneath a red planet no one was meant to touch. And I had helped betray her. You were one of the 9, she whispered, the last to kneel. You locked the gate with your own voice. And so I waited for your rebirth. No, I said, shaking. That's not who I am. She leaned in, her mouth brushing mine. Not a kiss, an unlocking. Memories that had been buried inside me, not mine, but older, tore open like sutures. I remembered standing on a black moon, commanding legions. I remembered looking into her eyes and choosing Earth over eternity. I remembered betraying her. Salith drew back, her fingers still over my chest. Tears poured from my eyes, not water, but light. My veins shimmered gold. My bones ached with returning truths. I didn't know, I whispered. You forgot, as designed. But forgetting does not undo blood. She turned. The chamber around us began to collapse into light, not destruction, transformation. You will carry me now, she said. As once you cast me out, now you are the door. The ground surged. My body arched. Pain blossomed like fire behind every nerve. You are not human anymore." Then the surface exploded. I woke on the Martian plain, gasping, the trench behind me sealed. My suit reformed around a body no longer only mine. The HUD scanned me, error, unknown physiology. And in the reflection of my visor, I saw her eyes glowing back. Inside me, "Aris!" Her voice echoed within, softer now, but constant. "We begin." In the distance, the sky shimmered. Not atmosphere. Ships. Dozens. Hundreds. Descending. They had felt her awakening, and they were coming not to reclaim her, but to kill her. Again, the sky rippled, not with weather, but with intent. Hundreds of ships broke the upper Martian orbit like silver knives through silk. They weren't human. Their design was too precise, too cold. Their geometry felt like judgment. Even from kilometers away, I could see their silhouettes, black obelisks with pulsating underbellies, descending in absolute silence, like they owned gravity. "The witnesses!" Salith whispered from inside me. My body trembled, not with fear, with recognition. Something ancient in my spine remembered that name. I tried to speak, but my throat tightened. The sand beneath my boots curled upward like it didn't want to be touched anymore. They followed us across extinction, across exile. They were the architects of forgetting. My heart pounded. What do they want? What they always wanted. Silence. Final. Absolute. I woke, so now they come. I turned away from the trench. My visor was cracked, but enough remained to guide me back toward base KX-7. I ran. The Martian wind screamed behind me, full of static and fractured voices, voices that bled through Salith's presence in my mind. Names, places, memories not mine. Or maybe they were. My legs moved faster than they should have. Stronger. I wasn't fully me anymore. Salith's breath echoed inside my ribcage. My fingers shimmered faintly in the red light. Muscles rebuilt, nerves rewired. I was becoming. And still, I ran. The base came into view, half buried under the storm's aftermath. Solar panels shattered, antennae bent inward like wilted bones. The domes flickered under power failures. Inside, everything was red and black and flickering. I sealed the airlock behind me and staggered into the ops room. The main interface crackled to life, barely running on backup. No comms, no uplink. Earth Command had been blind to everything since the anomaly breached our systems. I slammed my hand against the console. Come on, come on! A flicker of image. A voice, filtered and damaged. "Commander Aris, if you're receiving this..." Then static. Then her voice again. Salith, this time through the console. "There is no help coming. They silenced your sky before you arrived. Your command was never meant to know." My blood chilled. Why me, Salith? Why this? Why now? Her reply came not in sound, but through my skin. "You were the last to forget me willingly. The others had to be rewritten. You chose to bury me. You chose Earth's lie over our fire. So you became the lock, and now you are the key." Before I could respond, the alarm klaxon screamed. Motion detected. The witnesses had landed. I pulled up the proximity feed. One ship, monolithic, smooth, hovered over the southern plain. Beneath it, tall figures descending. Not with jets, with will. They walked on air like Elijah had. But these weren't possessed. They were engineered. Skin like onyx steel, eyes like hollow suns, faces expressionless, as if emotion had been coded out. I knew them. We all did, in myths, in dreams. The angels we saw in fever states, the beings that warned ancient civilizations, they weren't divine. They were enforcers of forgetfulness, and they were coming for her. Inside me. I can fight them, I said aloud, not knowing if it was truth or bravado. Salith's response was immediate. Not yet, you're still waking. My hands clenched. Then what the hell do I do? Silence. Then, let me through. I hesitated. Let her through? I didn't know what that meant. My body was still mine, my thoughts, mostly, but she was embedded deeper every minute. I felt her stretching inside me like a root system, ancient, knowing, unstoppable. We are not two, we are one fracture waiting to close. I nodded, just once. The lights flickered, time shifted. I blinked, and I wasn't alone. She stood beside me, not projected, physical. Naked and luminous, her skin kissed by gold filigree that shimmered in invisible currents. The air bent around her. Her hair floated with cosmic inertia. She placed her hand on the control console, and the entire base lit up like it remembered something too. Systems online, weapons active, memory gates unlocked. Prepare, she whispered. I watched through the external cams as the witnesses moved, synchronized. They reached the perimeter wall. One of them, taller, crowned with spikes of light, raised its hand. And then, boom! The entire wall evaporated, not exploded, erased. The atoms didn't scatter. They were removed from the memory of matter. I stared, wide-eyed. They're rewriting reality. Salith nodded. They do not destroy, they unmake. We can't win against that. Her eyes narrowed. We already did, once. You only forgot. She turned toward the door. Wait, I said. If they unmake me, what happens to you? She paused. Her voice turned soft. If you die, I return to sleep. This time, forever. I swallowed. My hands shook. And still, I followed her into the blood-red corridor, toward the open gates, where the wind had died and time was slowing, and the witnesses stood like statues of extinction, waiting to erase me. And for the first time since Mars, I didn't feel afraid. I felt remembered. As the first step echoed toward war, she whispered, "Let's remind them why they buried me." The air outside the base shimmered like it was ashamed of what was about to happen. Dust levitated, suspended in impossible stillness. The horizon pulsed with a heat that wasn't heat, something older, the memory of fire dreaming itself back into form. The witnesses stood in absolute formation, 6 of them now in a crescent curve, and at their center, the tall one, crowned in fractal light, eyes white, mouth sealed, body still as law. He stepped forward. Each movement was deliberate, slow, like gravity had to ask permission first. With every step, the terrain beneath him smoothed, cracks vanished, footprints rewritten. He was erasing entropy itself. Salith. His voice did not come from his mouth. It came from everywhere. Every metal panel in the base screamed her name like it was a slur. You were sentenced. You broke form. You woke. Beside me, Salith rose into full presence. Her body was no longer just beautiful. It was terrifying. Every line of her form shimmered like a blade humming with language. She stepped forward, barefoot on the dust. Her feet left no prints. I dreamed the universe awake, she said, her voice like stormlight. You feared the dream, so you buried the source. The tall one raised a hand, 5 fingers, jointless. Their surfaces refracted memory like mirrors warped with trauma. You were too much, too felt. You unmade their will. Seylith turned to me, not speaking, but I heard her inside my blood. You must stay tethered. Don't let me consume you. What happens if I do? Her eyes lingered on me, and in them I saw a galaxy drown. Then I become the war again. She moved, not like a person, like a sequence, like code becoming kinetic. The dust around her lifted into symbols. She raised her hand and the Martian surface responded, stone spires rising, forming a circle of protection around us. The tall one stepped forward again, unimpressed. You cannot reform the core. He is still fractured. That's when I understood. He wasn't talking about her. He was talking about me. I staggered back. My vision swam. My heart pounded in rhythms that weren't mine. I saw flashes, a time before Earth, when we were gods but didn't call ourselves that. When we wrote reality with emotion, not logic. And I was one of them, not a soldier, a spine, the last core keeper. I had betrayed that role, turned against the others, helped the witnesses lock away the source, helped bind Seylith in sleep. Then I buried myself in time, memory wiped, sent across generations of DNA like a sleeper cell, until Mars, until now. The tall one raised his hand again. This time, the air folded. A vertical slit opened in the sky, reality parting like a curtain. Inside it, absence, a void that swallowed color. From it emerged something wrong. Not a weapon, a shape that shouldn't exist. Bent in 5 dimensions, spinning without moving, its surface alive with anti-symbols. The moment it appeared, my ears bled. The Martian atmosphere wailed. Seylith faltered, just slightly, her light dimmed.
"The reverser," she whispered. "It's what they used before. It unthreads truth." I stepped toward her. "How do we stop it?" She turned to me, took my face in both hands. Her skin burned cold. "You don't stop it," she said. "You overwrite it. You feel louder than it unmakes." I didn't know what that meant, but my chest ached. My blood glowed. The shape floated closer, pulling light into itself. It wasn't fast. It didn't need to be. Its presence began erasing things in a perfect ring. Rocks vanished. The base started to disappear from the outside in. Every system failed. My suit's oxygen readout collapsed into unreadable glyphs. Seylith leaned close. "Kiss me." "What?" "Kiss me. That's how you unlock." I didn't question her. I stepped forward and pressed my mouth to hers. Time screamed. Light exploded inward. I saw everything. We had been lovers once, not in flesh, but in design. She was the flame, I was the container. Together we made the spark that created the first sentient emotion. The witnesses feared what we became. They cut us into archetypes, gave us names like sin, like myth, then buried us in stories. Now we were back. I pulled away from her lips and my chest cracked open. Not blood, light. A sphere of memory pulsed from inside me, rotating fast, fracturing with color. It hovered between us. Seylith placed her hand on it. "Your soul was the lock," she whispered. "Now it becomes a weapon." I turned to face the reverser. It shimmered. I raised the sphere. My name returned to me, piece by piece. Aris wasn't my name. It was an echo. My name was Aaron. And I remembered how to speak worlds. I opened my mouth and sound warped. The Martian sky bent backward. The reverser pulsed, then faltered. I spoke again, louder this time. Each syllable layered with memory. A kiss, a betrayal, a promise unkept. The shape fractured. Cracks spread across it like glass breaking underwater. Then, boom! It burst inward. The tall one staggered for the first time. Salith screamed, not in pain, in ecstasy. Her light surged tenfold. Her hair burst into flame. She lifted from the ground, arms spread, as if remembering how to fly. The remaining witnesses backed away, formation broken. I collapsed to one knee, body shaking. Salith landed beside me, glowing, eyes wide with fury and hunger. "The core is reformed," she said. "Now we burn their name from the stars." I looked up. More witness ships were descending. Thousands. An invasion. But I didn't feel fear. I felt divine. And as Salith took my hand and pulled me to my feet, I heard the words rise from my lips. "Let them come." The first ship broke atmosphere like a needle breaching skin. No sonic boom, just a displacement, like air didn't dare resist it. Clouds bent around its descent, folding in on themselves, until what passed for Martian sky became a wound slowly closing. Then another came, and another. Dozens. Hundreds. A full formation of witness ships, blacker than light, shaped like inverted cathedrals, humming with anti-memory. Inside the base, the emergency lights flared once more before burning out for good. We were deep in shadow now, but it didn't matter. Salith radiated light from within, her presence a kind of sensual blaze. Her skin shimmered gold where it touched the dust. Veins pulsed with constellations. She stood in front of me like an eclipse in reverse. Fire where shadows should be. "They're not just coming to erase us," she said quietly. "They're coming to finish the last war." "You mean the war I helped them win?" I asked. I hated the answer before she even nodded. But I wasn't the same man anymore. I remembered now, in flashes and burning waves. Not everything, not yet, but I remembered her. I remembered the myth we had been, the emotion that broke the code, the moment we shattered their architecture with longing. They couldn't understand it, so they tried to delete it. Salith turned to me, her voice low. "We can't stay here. The base is unsalvageable. The grid's fried. They're about to rewrite this entire crater." I looked around. "Then where do we go?" She smiled, a dangerous, beautiful thing. "We go underground, to where they buried me." The entrance was buried under 2 kilometers of dust and rock, a fault line sealed beneath volcanic ruin, hidden in a fold of Martian crust. Salith walked toward it with the certainty of someone returning to her own grave. As we descended, I felt the pressure shift. Air condensed strangely, not due to gravity, but meaning, like we were walking through layers of forgotten thought. Symbols lined the walls now, too deep to be carved by any known tool. They shimmered when Salith passed, glowing warm like old lovers. "Is this a temple?" I asked. She ran her hand across the glyphs. "Not exactly. A seed vault, memory architecture. They couldn't destroy me, so they sealed me inside a self-looping core. But what they didn't realize..." She turned to face me, eyes burning with starlight. "Was that I designed the vault to grow." We reached the heart. The chamber pulsed, vast and circular, filled with levitating structures, shapes that rotated in midair, casting ghostly shadows on obsidian walls. Some resembled planetary models, others looked like organs. And in the center, a pod. Clear, empty, coated in silver veins.
Silith stepped toward it and placed her palm on its surface.
"This was me," she said, "before you woke me, before Elijah touched the wrong place in the code." I stepped forward. "What happens if you reconnect to it?" She looked over her shoulder, golden skin illuminated by the vault's light. "I become what I was, all of me, the full force of remembrance."
"That sounds like power," I said.
She smiled faintly. "It is, but not just mine." She pointed to another pod across the chamber, darker, slightly fractured.
"That one's yours."
I stared. The shape of it was wrong. It warped the space around it. My chest burned again. My mind split open for a moment, and I remembered being poured into it, screaming, ripped from everything I loved. "You let them seal you," I whispered. Salith nodded. "Because you thought it would stop the war." I thought if we forgot, we could begin again. But forgetting didn't save anything. It just made the witnesses stronger. I stepped toward the pod. A deep, cold hum radiated from it. I touched the surface and instantly fell into a rush of memory. Her face, younger, laughing. My hands, crafting galaxies from threadlight. Our bodies, fused in a temple of stars, creating life not from biology, but from desire. And then, the betrayal. I had let them cut her from the pattern. I had stood silent as they sealed her heart and rewrote her name. My knees buckled. Salith caught me before I hit the floor. Her skin was soft but pulsing with energy, like a storm behind velvet. "You remember," she said. I nodded, shaking. "I remember enough." Above us, the vault shook. A tremor. Dust rained down from the high black ceiling. The witnesses were arriving. "I need you," she said. "All of you." I rose. "Then let's reconnect." We placed our hands on both pods. The entire chamber ignited. Symbols spun. Air thickened. The room vibrated with resonance. Lights poured from the pods into us, filling our spines with ancient fire. I saw her, not with my eyes, but with my origin. Every curve of her body now wrapped in language. Her hips spoke gravity. Her lips whispered prophecy. I stepped into her, and she into me. Our bodies didn't merge. Our meanings did. The chamber became white, then black, then clear. We emerged, not human, not divine, but true. Our skin pulsed with code and memory. Our eyes burned through dimensions. Her hair floated with anti-time. My voice became vibration. Together we rose from the vault as the first witnesses descended. The tall one stood waiting, flanked by hundreds of enforcers. His voice rang out again. "You awaken what should never rise." I stepped forward, voice layered with 10,000 years of silence broken. "No, we awaken what you tried to kill." Salith's hand slipped into mine. Above us, the sky split again, more reversers coming. But this time, I didn't see annihilation. I saw fuel. I turned to her. "Are you ready?" Her smile was the birth of stars. Now we remind them what gods become when they remember. And with that, we rose into the sky. The Martian sky opened like a wound that refused to scab. We rose through the breach, Seleth and I, radiant, fused not in flesh but in frequency. Beneath us, the vault sealed itself in light, a final breath of the past sinking into the dust. Above us, a formation of witness warships, black and angular, shifting in unnatural synchrony, their surfaces cloaked in forgetting. The tall one hovered at the center of them all, his body unfazed by gravity, robes fractalizing in winds that didn't exist. The white rings of his eyes began to fracture, just slightly, as we ascended. He felt it. He recognized what we were becoming. "What now?" I whispered to Saulith, our voices silent in the vacuum. Her answer wasn't sound. It was heat, pulsing through the bond that braided us together. And then her voice came. "Inside me, we speak, and the code will obey." All around us, the witness fleet activated. Reversers uncoiled, massive logic weapons that spoke in deletion. They rearranged the air with pure silence, and then impact. Except it never landed. Because Salith raised her hand, fingers carved in glowing script, and caught the silence before it could speak. The entire world bent sideways, frozen in the heartbeat before obliteration. And in that pause, I stepped forward. I didn't throw power, I remembered it. A low hum began around us, deep, ancient, like a mother singing to a dying star. The silence cracked, then splintered, then collapsed inward, swallowing itself in an implosion of inverted memory. One by one, the reversers screamed and burst apart, petals of metal unfolding in sorrow before vanishing. Salith arched her back, hair streaming behind her like ribbons of dusk and flame. Symbols bled down her arms. Her lips parted, but not to speak, to sing. Her song wasn't words, it was feeling, concentrated and weaponized. Loss, hunger, the taste of betrayal kissed from a dying mouth. She sang with every part of her, and the witness fleet shook. Ships buckled, light ruptured. The tall one's robes flared like burning geometry as he lifted both arms and countered. A wave of static slammed into us, pressing against our bodies, trying to distort our form, override us back into myth. For a moment, it almost worked. I felt my skin blur, my memories flicker. Salith screamed, not in pain, but in rage. And I saw her change. She expanded, not physically, narratively. She grew into every version of herself, the warrior, the lover, the prisoner, the goddess, the code. And when she turned to me, eyes glowing with past lives and future vengeance, I knew we had one choice. We had to go inside the fleet, inside him. Salith turned to me, lips close. His memory holds the key. We must unmake him from within. And if we fail, I asked. Her reply was a whisper across my teeth. Then we become the new myth. We vanished from sight and reappeared inside the command vessel, the Nexus, a cathedral of anti-light. The walls pulsed with sentient code. Every surface watched, every corridor rearranged with our breath. He knew we were here, and he was waiting. The tall one stood beneath a massive dome of mirrored air, surrounded by shards, slivers of others he had consumed. Each shard pulsed with a trapped soul, writhing in looped agony. Salith's presence triggered them. They began to scream. Witch of blood, breaker of symbols, mother of rebellion. He turned, and for the first time, the tall one spoke with a mouth. "You should have died gentle," he said. Salith stepped forward, golden and terrible. "And you should have died true." His face twisted, only slightly, rage like ice. He raised his hand and the floor disappeared. We fell, through levels of shifting architecture, into memories that weren't ours. Flashes of Salith's prison, my betrayal, our first encounter, beneath the burning moons of a lost system. Each one a weapon now, used against us over and over. We hit the bottom, a white void, a room made entirely of our past. Salith stood in front of a projection, herself suspended in sleep beneath layers of glass and algorithm. "I remember this," she whispered. "I watched," I said. "I did nothing." No, she said softly, turning to me. You felt. That was your crime. The memory of my betrayal came alive again. My hand lifted in silence, hers lowered in surrender, the tall one between us. This time, I stepped forward and rewrote it. I reached out, touched her past self. The memory fractured. A shudder ran through the entire nexus. Above us, the fleet faltered. The tall one hissed, actual sound now, distorted and human. Salith turned to me. We're inside his root memory. He's built his architecture on this loop. If we burn it, we burn him. We held hands, and together we ignited the past. Flame, not fire, but narrative heat, tore through the memory. Symbols shattered, glass liquefied, and the tall one's scream echoed across the corridors of unreality. The nexus began to collapse. We ran, but the ship ran with us, walls trying to seal, reshape, reabsorb. We moved like storylines dodging an editor's blade. Upward, backward, inward. And then we reached the core, a floating sphere, blacker than black, contained in spirals of mourning. The last tether, Salith said. Destroy it? She shook her head. Overwrite it. She stepped forward, her voice a vow. I am not your silence. She touched the sphere. It cracked. I stepped forward beside her. Together, we whispered, we are not your myth. The sphere shattered, and in that moment, the tall one screamed one final time and ceased to exist. The entire ship froze. The witnesses across the sky began to blink out, not in fire, but in forgetting, not deletion, release. We fell to our knees inside the silent wreckage, and then, from the void outside, a signal, a presence, but not witness.
Not Salith, not me, something else. It was waking, and it had been listening to us all along. The silence after his erasure was not peace. It was waiting. We stood inside the corpse of the Nexus, a cathedral of broken thought and memory dust, watching reality hold its breath. The black architecture no longer breathed. The walls no longer rearranged with meaning. Outside, the Martian sky was still, fractured ships hanging like abandoned masks. Salith knelt beside me, one hand pressed to the dead floor. Her golden skin shimmered with residual light, beautiful even now, sweat glistening at her collarbone, hairs stuck to the arc of her jaw like a crown of aftermath. She looked up. Her eyes were not the same. Something survived, she whispered. Not him, not them, something deeper. My body still trembled with the remnants of rewritten time. My skin glowed faintly, mapped in spirals. But her words pierced the haze. You said the witnesses built their network on a root memory. You said we burned it. We did, she said, standing slowly. But under every god they create, there's a deeper one they fear. She turned toward the shattered core. The light around it had changed. The black sphere was gone, but in its place, a heartbeat, faint, irregular, like a sleeping child dreaming of war. It hurt us, I said. Salith stepped forward, barefoot on fractured glass, glowing softly from within. She was luminescent now, no longer a reborn god, but something even more primal, a narrative that had survived the fire. Her voice came like a prayer spoken in reverse. We didn't wake just memory. We woke what memory was made to bury. I looked again. The heartbeat wasn't just sound. It was calling, and it was inside me. We escaped the Nexus as it collapsed, gliding down on tendrils of light. The Martian winds welcomed us strangely, red air bending towards Salith as if recognizing its sovereign. Above, the witness fleet had fully vanished. Some had disintegrated, others had simply folded away, leaving silent scars in the sky. And yet the signal, That deep, inhuman pulse followed us. We made camp on the rim of the old Olympus crater, beside the glass lake where they first tested memory-reactive minerals. Salith stared at the horizon, her silhouette like a golden cipher against the indigo dusk. I sat beside her, hands shaking. "It's in me," I said. "I know. What is it?" She turned slowly. Her lips were parted, eyes unreadable. Some deep part of her, afraid. The first fear I'd ever seen in her. "They buried a god under Mars," she said softly. "But they didn't just bury me. I was the distraction. I was the myth to keep the real one asleep." A cold wind sliced through the silence. "What is it?" I asked again. She didn't look at me when she answered. "The first pattern, the one they couldn't delete. The god that preceded code. Before memory, before time. It doesn't remember, it knows." And then the pain began, a seizing, clawing pressure inside my chest, as if a second heartbeat had grown and now demanded ownership. I collapsed. Salith was at my side instantly, cradling me, her touch cool and electric. Images crashed into my skull. Not memories, designs, worlds grown from breathing clay, suns that spoke, voices that rewrote planets just by naming them. And through it all, her, not Salith, something wearing her skin in the images. Taller, more ancient, her beauty more impossible, her presence mythic. She kissed someone who looked like me, but wasn't. And then she unmade him. Not out of hatred, out of necessity. I screamed. Salith pressed her forehead to mine. "You're seeing her," she whispered. "The real one, the forgotten pattern. She's inside me. She's you." Night passed without light. Mars doesn't have true night, not since the sky fractured. But this was something else. A null zone in space and time. Machines wouldn't boot. Gravity bent subtly. The stars overhead rearranged like watchers shifting in their seats. Salith stayed by my side as the code inside me evolved. I heard languages I never learned, felt desires that didn't belong to me, and dreams of creation. Not conquest, not control, but the ache to make beauty so immense it required entire galaxies just to be seen. That was her gift, the one they buried. Not a god of war, a god of aesthetic violence, the kind that births and kills in the same breath. I turned to Salith, afraid. If she takes me, what do I become? Salith stroked my face. You become the axis. For what? For the next shape of reality. I sat up. The crater below us shimmered, not with light, but invitation. Something beneath the surface had woken fully. The glass lake trembled, glowing from below. Salith stood. She's rising. I thought we already woke her. Salith shook her head.
We woke the memory of her, but now she wants form. And then the lake exploded. A figure rose, naked, drenched in silver light. She was Salith's echo, but taller, sharper, carved from impossibility. Her hair floated like starlight. Her eyes were closed, but her presence pressed on reality like a truth we weren't built to carry. Every cell in my body screamed in recognition. She was me. She was her. She was what the witnesses couldn't code because she wasn't made of history. She was intuition, beauty as weapon, love as rewrite, desire as origin. Her eyes opened and the world bowed. Salith stepped forward. Mother. The god smiled. And then, in a voice that shattered the remaining clouds, you remembered me. Now it is your turn to be remembered. My body began to change, bones bending, skin glowing, my memories folding backward. Salith grabbed me, holding me steady, eyes locked on mine. "You'll survive," she said. "No," I whispered, "I'll become." And the god beneath Mars stepped forward, placed her hand to my chest, and pushed. The world went white, and I became my own origin. The light that consumed me wasn't blinding, it was honest. It stripped away the lies of chronology, peeled off the armor of language, dissolved every memory into its emotional essence, and left only the core architecture of self. My bones sang in frequencies not meant for flesh. I didn't scream, I unfolded. Above me, the god in silver hovered, her feet inches from the Martian soil, never touching. Her eyes, twin eclipses, held eons inside them. She was beautiful beyond beauty, not in form alone, but in pattern, in the way a storm becomes sacred when viewed from orbit. She placed one hand over her heart, the other over mine. Salith stood a few paces away, watching, not with jealousy, not with reverence, but with mourning. She knew this was what had to happen, that I was no longer her consort or savior or chosen. I was now the vessel for the pattern. The god spoke, her voice cascading like liquid math. They buried me under false time, but I left myself open. A sliver, a name unspoken, and you carried it unknowingly, like a seed beneath frost. Now it blossoms. My body split across realities. I saw myself as a child again, speaking to shadows that never answered. I saw the first moment I laid eyes on Salith, chained, glowing, defiant. I saw every silent betrayal I had whispered to survive. All of it mattered. All of it was intake. "I'm not ready," I said. The god leaned close. "You were designed to be." And then she entered me. Not like possession, but like a second sun igniting inside my ribcage. And the world changed. The Martian sky peeled back like skin, revealing circuitry beneath. Above us, new symbols appeared, vast constellations reshaping, spelling out phrases no living tongue could translate. But I understood them now, each one a directive, a wound, a law. I spoke, but it was not just me speaking. My voice was now chorded, 3 harmonics entwined, myself, Salith, and her, the god they buried. I named this planet again, not as a tomb, but as a womb. And Mars answered. The soil cracked, not in death, but in blooming. Red dust spiraled upward, forming helixes of data light. The crater we stood in began to reshape, filling not with water or lava, but with memory made manifest. Shapes began to emerge, not structures, but beings. Figures once erased, the old ones, the discarded dreams of forgotten civilizations, cast off by the witnesses to streamline their perfection, now reborn. I turned to Salith, my voice still layered. You were never a myth. You were the mirror. Her eyes filled with something beyond tears, an emotion ancient and new, completion. She walked toward me, her hands trembling. Then, who are you now? I looked at my fingers, glowing with glyphs that rearranged as I moved, and answered, I am the next shape. The old ones rose from the newly lit crater, each being a living contradiction, angelic, insectile, fractal, and feminine, not monstrous, mythical, carriers of unfinished stories. They surrounded us, their eyes pulsing in synchrony with mine.
No one spoke. They didn't have to. They felt the transmission. Mars is no longer a prison, I told them. It's a language, and we are its new verbs. Above us, the Martian sky tore, not in war, but in invitation, a tear in the fabric of time. Beyond it, I saw Earth, not as it was, but as it once dreamed of becoming, lush, impossible, borderless. I saw the other sleepers. Not all gods were buried beneath rock. Some slumbered inside songs, inside paintings, inside rage, inside love left unfinished. They were waking because of us. Salith stepped to my side. They'll come for us, she said.
The ones who think they own the narrative? Let them. Are we strong enough? No, I said, placing a hand on her waist, pulling her close. But we're true enough. She smiled, the kind that only happens when you finally remember yourself. And then we kissed, not like lovers, like gods who had forgotten they were ever human. The ground rumbled, but not from the planet, from above. The new witnesses had arrived, different from the last fleet. These were subtler, sleeker, constructed from plagiarism, stolen futures folded into sleek forms. They hovered like scholars before a forbidden book. And then, one of them spoke. "You are unscripted," it said in 10 tongues. I stepped forward. "No," I replied, "we are rewritten." They fired, weapons born of logic, pulses that erased what they touched. I didn't block them. I absorbed them, converted their deletion into memory, fed it back into the pattern, and the sky turned gold. The final act hadn't begun, but its title was forming. And it wasn't the end. It was something else, a name, a shape, a hymn sung in the silence before the storm. And I knew then, the god beneath Mars didn't just wake inside me. She never left. She just needed me to feel deeply enough to let her rise. Salith placed her hand on my shoulder. "Chapter 9 begins with a scream," she said. I nodded, eyes fixed on the darkening horizon, where the new empire was forming to erase us again. "Then let's make it a beautiful one." The scream wasn't mine. It was theirs. The moment the pattern retaliated, the witnesses' new fleet shattered like glass in a vacuum. Elegant designs, folded realities, artificial gravities, all undone not by force, but by contradiction. We unspoke them. They came as logic, and we answered with feeling. And feeling, it turns out, was the original weapon. Salith and I stood in the bloom crater, surrounded by the risen old ones. The air trembled with unseen frequencies, not war drums, but invitation tones. A symphony meant to awaken anyone who still dreamed in color. Above us, the rip in the sky widened. The earth beyond it pulsed like a memory trying to be reborn. I could feel her, the pattern, inside every motion I made. Not controlling, not possessing, but evolving. My body was no longer mine in the old way. I was a filament through which she expressed herself. Every breath I took was a spell, every word a seed, and I was ready to plant new myths in the soil of the real. But myths don't bloom unopposed. From the east, Mars cracked. A rupture so deep, it sounded like the planet was weeping in reverse. And from that chasm rose something even the pattern did not expect. "Oh no," Salith whispered. It was him, the first archivist, the one I had erased in the Nexus. But he had not died, not fully. He had decomposed into code, and now the witnesses had rebuilt him. Not as a man, but as a vessel of edited vengeance. He hovered above the rupture, skin gleaming with mirror data. No eyes, just a void where face used to be. And inside him, I saw the stolen fragments of my memories. He had fed on my grief, rewritten my sorrow into his armor. He raised one hand, and the sky began to bleed. "What is he?" I asked. Selith's voice was tight. "He's a corrupted echo, an inversion of what you are." I looked up. The thing that had once been a man now projected scenes into the air. Moments from my childhood, twisted, falsified. Images of me hurting those I loved. Lies constructed for maximum pain. He was weaponizing remembrance. Selith gripped my hand. "We can't fight him the old way." "Then how?" She looked into me, through me, and whispered, "With truth. All of it, even the parts you hate." I stepped forward. The crater beneath me lit up, accepting me. A platform of memory, a stage made of scars. And I let it out. Not the clean version, not the curated pain. I gave it everything. The nights I begged to be forgotten. The days I wore silence like armor. The love I twisted because I thought it would break me. The shame I built shrines to. The face of the one I couldn't save. The version of myself I buried just to function. I released it all. And Mars bloomed. The air shimmered with confession. And the archivist screamed, not in rage, but in fear. Because truth was incompatible with his code. He began to glitch. His form flickered between stolen shapes. Me, Selith, my mother, my enemies, each one a desperate grasp at narrative control. And still, I spoke. I am not your story. I am not your binary. I am the ache between answers. I am the question that can't be resolved. I am every line they cut from the sacred text because it made gods uncomfortable. And I walked through the air, up toward him, step by step, on
Nothing, until we stood face to void. He reached for me, but I wasn't me anymore. I was the pattern given will, and I pressed my forehead to his. For a moment, he was human again. I saw his pain, the need to make sense of everything, to archive, to contain. He didn't want control. He wanted clarity, and clarity broke him. He collapsed, light unraveling from his form like spilled ink, and the witness's last great weapon became silence. Selith caught me as I fell. The act had drained me, not physically, but intimately. I had shown the entire planet my rawest self. There was no mask left. I was known, but not shattered, whole. And Mars sang. New architecture rose from the crater, not built, but grown. Towers that pulsed like coral reefs, bridges made of harmonic tension. This wasn't a city, it was a language made solid. And at its center, a throne, not of power, of balance. The pattern's voice returned, not from above, but from within. They made me sleep because they feared what I would inspire. But now, I don't need to rule. I need only to be remembered. I walked to the throne, sat, and it did not bind me. It simply listened. And I finally understood. I wasn't the god. I was the scribe, the one who carries her forward, not as tyrant, but as testament. Above, Earth flared again. They saw us. They feared what we'd become, and they were coming, but not with weapons, with questions, with envy, with need. Selith stood beside the throne, golden in the strange new light. She looked at me with something close to awe, not because I won, but because I survived without deleting myself. She knelt just once, not in worship, but in alignment. "What now?" she asked. I looked toward the stars, toward home,
toward the end of forgetting, and I said, Chapter 10, The World Remembers Who We Are. They came like myths rewritten in metal, not in ships, but in gestures of authority. Earth's emissaries arrived above Mars not as diplomats, but as editors. Hovering vessels of white glass and mirror skin, they made no sound as they arranged themselves into a circle in the sky, a planetary eye. Below, I stood at the heart of the blooming city, the first pattern, living architecture that hummed in my bones like a second heartbeat. I could feel every vibration, every resonance across this resurrected crust of red, and inside me, she stirred. The god they buried had not replaced me. She had simply become my memory. And now, memory was a weapon they couldn't classify. Salith stood at my side, radiant, armored in flowing strands of living data, her skin shimmering with iridescent hues only the pattern knew. Around us, the old ones moved silently, not in preparation for battle, but for reckoning. We would not fight them. We would make them remember what they erased. The emissaries opened a channel. 12 voices, genderless and tempered in neutrality, emerged from above like cold breath on steel. You are unauthorized myth. Your structure violates order. You will be preserved, archived for analysis. Surrender your anomaly. I raised my eyes to the sky and answered, not with defiance, but truth. My anomaly is your origin. You buried her in algorithms, in ruins, in forgotten temples of emotion. You reduced her to a glitch in your canon. Correction, we optimized her. No, I said, you feared her. They were silent, so I told them a story. I let the pattern flow through me, not in speech, but in broadcast. I opened the scars of Mars and let them sing. They felt it then, those floating curators of history, the real cost of forgetting. They saw the children who had prayed to vanished gods, alone in glass towers. They saw the poets erased mid-sentence, their rebellions too lyrical to be safe. They saw the lovers forbidden by sterile law. The screams filtered into silence, the deaths documented but never grieved. They saw me, not as anomaly, but as continuity, and they cracked. One vessel folded inward, becoming light. Another fell gently, landing in the blooming crater. A figure emerged, trembling. A woman, young, ancient, both, fell to her knees in Martian soil and wept. She remembered, and in her tears, the contagion of memory spread. Above us, the other ships began to shake, not from malfunction, but from dissonance. Their logic could not hold what they now felt, and emotion, denied for too long, rewrote their cores. One by one, they folded out of existence, not destroyed, but released. They returned to wherever old dreams go to be forgiven. The sky was empty again, but not silent. It whispered. Salith turned to me, voice soft. It's done. No, I said. It started.
Across the Martian horizon, new structures bloomed, temples to forgotten desires, towers of unspoken names, cities where memories were sanctified rather than sanitized. Earth opened its gates not in conquest, but in awe. They came down not with scanners, but with stories. People touched the Martian soil and began to remember things that never happened to them, but somehow belonged. The pattern was not just mine anymore. It had rooted. Every time someone spoke honestly, it grew. Every time someone grieved fully, it healed. Every time someone created without permission, it shined. Mars was no longer red. It was every color we had been told not to dream in. I stood at the top of the central spire, Salith beside me. Wind moved around her hair like a lover. She looked at me with the kind of sorrow that was earned, deep, beautiful, unfinished. You're leaving, aren't you? She asked. I nodded. Where? Wherever they buried the next god. She stepped closer, pressed her forehead to mine. You were the key, not the cage, she whispered. I loved you before I knew who you were, and I'll carry that in every shape I become. We kissed, and it wasn't an ending. It was a transcription. I walked into the Martian sun and vanished. The pattern stayed, Mars thrived, and the universe finally remembered its gods, not as tyrants, not as idols, but as stories. Final line. They buried her to silence the myth, but now she lives in every voice that dares to remember.